Welcome to Casual Watch Talk, the podcast from the Casual Watch Reviewer YouTube channel. Join us as we talk everything watches, from watch collecting, the latest horology news and interviews. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe on your favourite podcast app. Let's dive into the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 8 of Casual Watch Talk. You're joined by Sam from the Casual Watch Review channel and Chris from Everyday Mastery. How have you been, Chris?
Oh, pretty good. Getting over that cold.
Oh yeah, I forgot last week. Yeah, we had a bit of a delay on the podcast. You were a bit under the weather, so glad to hear that you're back up to 100%. As always in these shows, we've got a couple of news stories and then we've got a main topic, which I think everyone will find kind of interesting. I'm certainly intrigued by it, but it sounds like I might be getting a bit of an interrogation in that part as well.
Maybe.
So let's start with what watch are you wearing at the moment?
Well, today I posted up on Instagram last night and was getting it wound up. I've got my Bell & Ross GMT, the Zin 144. Wound that. I got that spun up. And part of the reason is I'm set to go to the Watch Buys event this Friday. So they do a tour where they bring out their watches. They usually get like a hotel room, and I'm pretty big on Instagram. You'll see a bunch of watch people start to post up, like so Zin, Hanhart, Fortis, some of the others. They've got a bunch of German Nomos, but they're not exclusive Nomos, but
Junkens, don't they?
Yeah, some of the German brands. So so much like, you want to wear the T-shirt of the band that you're going to see. That's I'll put that on just to turn heads a little bit. But
I've been to one of these events. I'm not going to this one, but I've been to one that was at the Hotel Irvine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody's listening to this that might have heard about Watch Buys. If you've ever searched for a Zin watch, literally the only place that you can buy it from new, I think, is the Watch Buys website. And this website I'm guessing, hasn't been functionally improved since the early 2000s. What do you think? Have you ever bought from there? What do you think about their website?
So no watches for me, but I have like a mixed experience. So I went to one of their road shows last year, had a pretty good experience, but it's different than, your typical modern e-commerce retail. And I mean, I have some experience with that. So it's sort of this old world model. So that you can't buy anything there. They show all the watches. You can't buy anything there. You then could place an order with them. You could, and certainly give them your credit card, whatever, online. But yeah, the website, like, single picture of the watch. I mean, it's...
Yeah, you can't see... And some of these watches, they're the exclusive online retailer for.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I was messaging Fortis back and forth when I had Fortis watches. I still think Fortis is a great brand. I might get another Fortis in the collection.
Ceramic, what's it, the ceramic bezel?
Yeah, the classic Cosmonaut.
Cosmonaut, right.
And also another watch, which I will talk about when we hit one of our first news stories here as well, that I bought that was a Fortis, and we'll get into that shortly. But yeah, and I was messaging them back and forth. They liked one of my posts after I did I believe it was the classic Cosmonaut versus the Speedmaster, and they liked it, and I sort of was chatting with their online marketer. And I actually said to them, this was when they announced they were going bankrupt, and I said, it's such a shame that you're filing for bankruptcy. Luckily, they were saved, but it was looking very dicey there for a bit.
Yeah, Fortis, and then apparently, an enthusiast investor bought them. Someone.
Yeah, I think they were quite lucky there. So I messaged them and said, look, your distribution model in the US is, I think you could improve it massively. I said, people can only buy it through Watch Buys. Because they can only buy them new through Watch Buys, they can also buy them through Germashop, which we'll talk about shortly. But if you're looking at like pure, these people support the brand, in the US, it's Watch Buys, and they sell everything for RRP. You click buy now. There's no like negotiation or anything like that. I said to them, this is the problem: is people are nowadays are looking for, price matching online. They want to make sure they're getting a good deal. I said you can tell by the, luckily you can get some Fortises secondhand for a bargain. So I think I think you're missing a lot of the new. And they said, well, we're very happy with our distribution model with watch buys. And I said, look. I said, honestly, if you can send me watches, I will review them for free. I love the brand and I will get the word out, no problem. No commitment from you. I'll borrow the watches for 2 or 3 weeks. And they said, I've got to go through watch buys.
So, I'm of two minds, because it's the same story with Zyn, and I can tell my story. If I was the owner, I mean, I would absolutely love that I had a memo of understanding that I was the only distributor in the United States. That'd be amazing, right? I mean, if you had that, like take advantage of it. And I think maybe that's, with their online stuff, maybe that's that they want to sort of key you into the roadshow sort of experience. They've sort of always done that. So I feel like in the past 5 years of e-commerce, we've come a long way from, send a self-addressed stamped envelope to, and yeah.
If you think about Zyn, Hanhart, especially Zyn, Hanhart, Fortis, Young Hands, they make better watches than for the majority of other brands that you see in Macy's, in some of the high street jewelers. To think if you had a penetration of Zyn, I mean, also there's a big love in the US for German culture because of because so many Germans came over the founding of the US. They've been here for generations. I think Zyn would do awesome, but literally, I assume that Zyn is an enthusiast brand. When I see somebody with Zyn, I'm like, oh, they must know much about watches. Nobody's buying a Zyn watch just by chance.
Right. Yeah, it turns it into this. Right, it turns into this enthusiast brand. That's a good descriptor for it. Yeah, and I wonder how much better they could really do. It's interesting, those agreements, those like 19th century agreements that go back to like, the back room, the smoky back room, where the gentlemen are making an agreement like, all right, we're gonna split up the continents, and we're gonna only sell to here. And certainly understand, if you're an entrepreneur and someone says to you like, listen, we're going to give you North America and you're going to be the only distributor in North America, and you can build the brand and get people excited about it. But yeah, my experience with them was having a couple of vintage Zyn watches. I needed some parts for one of them, and I had taken it to a trusted local watchmaker. And basically he said like, I can't get parts for them. And I was like, well, right. But like, they're just tough to come by. And he's like, no, I can't, they will not sell me parts as a watchmaker in North America.
Yeah. And I'm sure watch buys, I'm sure they offer excellent customer service and it's a reliable place to buy a watch from. They also service and manage it. And maybe it's just sour grapes from me that I can't get a deal on a new Fortis or Zyn watch without going on the grey markets. Just my opinion.
And actually this is interesting. So my opinion differs a little bit. I think their prices are great. So I like, let's preface all of this, like wrap this up. Like I don't want to say like, oh, this is a scam and they're making shady back deals. No. I think their prices are great, and I think that like the market could be opened up so much more if they had the ability to click and buy. I went and I bought. So what was cool is Zyn still offers the same bracelets, the same accessories that they've had for 20, 30 years, which is amazing, guys, which is great. So I ordered I've now ordered 2 bracelets from Watch Buys. And the first one I bought, they like had to go through this. It sort of irked me a little bit, because as an e-commerce guy, you don't want to make any friction. You don't want to make, like, if someone puts stuff in their cart, like, you want to be like, hi, what's your credit card number? Like, let me get out of the way and like have you send me money. But the very first time I purchased, there had to be like an email confirmation back and forth, and was like, okay, so what watch is this for? And I felt exactly like when you're in a when you're in a boutique, or you're in a mall someplace, and they're working commission, and then you pick something off the shelf and you're just about to check out, and the person's like, can I help you with that? Like, what are you going to be using that for? And like, let's discuss your purchasing decision right here in the middle of the floor. And you're like, listen, I don't even want this anymore.
Yeah, it's funny that, and you're right. They could, without criticizing them, but also how they could be better. They could improve that website massively, improve the e-commerce side of it. And the other thing, and we've talked about this before, I might have even talked about my channel, one of the things that irks me in the watch industry is the fact that Tag used Steve McQueen's image. Like, it's literally the only image of Steve McQueen ever wearing a tag, and they've used
printing
it to death.
They've been printing money since 1900 whatever, right? Yeah.
He actually personally owned a Handheart watch, but you'd never know that by the Watch Buy's website. His personal watch was a Rolex, but also he had like a Handheart watch. I mean, they could be milking that thing.
I know. Yeah.
The like Tagger doing. I mean, but anyway. Okay, so we went off on a bit of a tangent there. We did what watch you're wearing, and then have you got a watch obsession this week?
No, I think winding down. On watch obsession. I was my watch obsession is making eBay and what's it? Not Chrono 24, but what's the other search engine? The used watch search engine.
Watchbox.
Watch Recon.
Oh, Watch Recon.
Yeah, so making a Watch Recon email alert to see if anything. So I just did a bunch of those because I just couldn't find anything. So I was just like, I gotta close all these tabs and stop. But I'm on the hunt, and we should definitely do an episode of stuff that we're on the hunt for. So
yes, I've had I'll start with what I'm wearing. I'm wearing the Ultimate Turtle. I love this thing.
Right, 3 times in a row.
Absolutely love it. 3 times in a row. I also did buy. I talked about it last week that I was thinking of buying a G-Shock, and I did buy one. It's the one. It's like the DW5700 or something. So you've got the classic 5600, which is like the rectangular one. This is that, but basically in a slightly more rounder case. And I did a proper second take on it, and I was thinking, I am definitely getting old, because the buttons are too small on the side. They're
really?
Recessed, but they're not like some G-Shocks. Obviously they have like a plastic overlay on the button, but this is just that exposed metal button. I can't press the mode button. You can, but it's just irks me enough.
Too small, or just too small, or just too...
They're too recessed within the case.
Okay.
So it's hard to press. And you can press them, but I'm thinking I want this for, jogging and stuff like that. And I'm not like the world's most fittest person, so when I'm like huffing and puffing and trying to change the mode,
clamp down on those buttons.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to need something. So I'm going to return it to Amazon, and I've ordered another G-Shock. So that's kind of been...
Did you get the black, the inverted?
No.
Okay.
I don't get that. I do not get those inverted.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Here's my take. I think they're cool. Completely unreadable. Like, totally useless, but cool.
Yeah.
And you did mention getting older. That is, I can be like the old curmudgeon guy and just be like, I can't see that.
I don't get them. I don't get the...
Yeah, I think it's like a stealth kind of look. I think it's like tactical. It'd be a good description of it.
That's a good phrase, tactical. Oh, we should use that. I like that one.
Yeah. No, I did not make it up, but definitely one to use here.
Oh, there is definitely tactical.
Brightness has to be up, you have to be in a bright room, and you have to look directly squarely at it. There can be no angle there. Otherwise you're not going to be able to, what time is it?
it's a weird one. So I'll be returning that. So I guess my watch obsession has been G-Shocks this week, although the Timex released that new Timex Q with the gold, which there's something about it. And also, I don't know if you've seen that new Zenith, the Land Rover limited edition Zenith watch.
I did.
Oh, it looks so good.
Looks good.
14 grand. Oh dear.
It's made of carbon ceramic, right? It's made of some material that we can't. It's made of the same material that they make Porsche GT3 brakes out of. So
it would have to be made for me to pay 14 grand for it, would have to be made from a component from the first ever Land Rover Defender. They'd have to have stamped it out of the wing of some, either the Tomb Raider one that was used in the film or some like Churchill's Jeep or something.
Right. We hauled this out of the North Sea and we found it. Right. Yeah.
Because I love those original Land Rover Defenders. It's such a shame that they ended up killing them off, but maybe that's another. We're not a car podcast.
So you said a G-Shock that kind of looks like that? Is that what we're talking about, or?
No, I got a different type of G-Shock, actually the more classic looking one. There was a time when I loved those huge G-Shocks. Like, I could not get enough of them.
Yeah. Like you mentioned the Rangeman last time, like the Mudman, that's giant 50 millimeter.
I think the Rangeman's exactly. The Rangeman ended up being a bit too big for me, but it is. I mean, I'll forever say that I think that's the best G-Shock they've ever made, is that Rangeman. Okay, so we've done what we're wearing, we've done our watch obsession, so we dive into a couple of news stories before we hit our main topic.
Yeah, sure, sounds good.
This is from Watch Pro, and it's the new Christopher Ward, the C60 Elite 1000 is Christopher Ward's first titanium watch. So that's the news story, but I guess the question would be, what do you think of titanium watches?
I love the Pelagos. I love the Tudor Pelagos. I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Looking at the blue dial of this and like thinking titanium. So in my long-term, possibles, that's always been in that. And there's definitely been times where I'll see titanium watches and I'll think, am I just gonna buy this, wear this, and then wish that I had bought the Tudor? Like,
yeah.
So a little bit of that. That was sort of my first experience with it. The titanium, it's so light, and that's kind of one of the benefits. So if you're a guy that can go for maybe that chunkier watch or that bigger watch, the fact that it's all titanium, super light. You forget that it's on your wrist, which is cool. I always thought that titanium was stronger because you're like aerospace and car racing, and you're like, no, it can be scratched pretty easily.
Yeah, somebody called me out on one of my uploads, actually. I think I was reviewing, maybe it was a titanium Boulder watch. And if anybody listening to this isn't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please head over to the Casual Watch Reviewer at gmail.com. You'll see my reviews, and also Chris has made a few guest appearances on there. I made a comment. This is now because I have this like confirmational bias in my head about watches. I have to double check stuff, and in there I just made a throwaway comment about, it'll be less scratch resistant, and somebody in the comments rightly called me out on it and said, actually, it's not. It will probably scratch more than steel. I teased this story a bit earlier on about another Fortis watch I had. I had the B42. It was titanium, and it had a titanium bezel, and I just hated it. It was noisy. It felt cheap, to be honest. I think the bezel is a hard thing to do in titanium.
Right.
Dare I say your titanium Steinhardt. I know word. I can't even bring myself to say Steinhardt. Your titanium Steinhardt's bezel does feel actually really good, to be perfectly honest. But anyway, let's dive into the next story. And this has been in the news so much at the moment, and we're currently on February 2020. It's been in the news so much, but you didn't expect it to bleed out into the watch scene. And this is news about the coronavirus. Not only is the Hong Kong International Jewelry Show, which I think is one of the largest watch and jewelry shows in Asia, has moved from March to May, but Swatch have actually cancelled their event, which wasn't going to be in Hong Kong, which was going to be called Time and More, which was going to rival Baselworld, I think. Yeah. They've also cancelled that in concerns with the coronavirus.
But I think really... I think it was the timing with the holiday, with the New Year. I think that's what did it. And so for most people know, but just so most of Asia, China, Hong Kong, etc., takes a holiday for the New Year. And specifically in China, they're not there for 2 weeks. Like everyone goes home, everyone goes back to their family. It's like Thanksgiving and Christmas jammed together in 2 weeks. And so I think that caught them out. I don't know whether everybody had left for vacation and the flu came on, or people had come back and then the flu was sort of apparent. I don't know at this point. I think we're ending. I think this is the last week, or last week was the last week anyway. But I think because the coinciding that, I mean, you had a city. I mean, you had a city of 11 million people just shut down. I mean, just like imagine Northeast, like from New Jersey to Maine, just you can't, no trains, no planes, no automobiles, all the bridges are closed, all the stores are shut down. I mean, just an amazing amount of people. So certainly I could see why they did it, but I have a feeling less panic and more that it just happened to coincide with that.
Yeah, and they think it's, I mean, Watch Pro is even reporting it might affect Swatch's sales numbers. Well, obviously they're going to be cancelling events, so that will affect it. And if anybody has coronavirus or knows anyone that's got coronavirus, then we wish you a speedy recovery. Right. Okay, so before we dive into our main topic for today, Chris and I are running this podcast on a regular cadence here. And to do that, we have sponsors that are going to support us through the Anchor website. So we're just going to pause briefly for a quick word from our sponsor. So our main topic today is something that I haven't had much say in, it has to be said. Chris is going to be presenting our main topic for today. He might be getting me to squirm in my seat a little bit on this topic, but fair to say that it should certainly be an interesting subject for you guys to listen to. So Chris, I'll let you kick this off.
All right. Well, yeah, we're going to talk about watch collecting types. That's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about what type you are, Sam, what type I am, and we'll pull some of the stereotypes. We're going to put people in buckets. We're going to find out what makes Sam tick. We're going to see if he's a flipper. So let's get into it.
What spurred you onto this subject?
I read an article, a really good article on a blog to watch. And I think I mentioned them last time, and I said Adam. It's Ariel Adams is the guy over there, and sort of a fascinating article. We'll link it in the show notes. The concept that, like, are you being influenced? So are you being influenced as a watch collector? So if you're listening to us, I know that you've gone far enough down the rabbit hole where I'm going to guess that you have, one or two of your, key pieces. Maybe you're interested in learning more. Maybe you're kind of seeking out information on what this hobby, what this is all about.
Yeah, it's funny. I commented on, somebody mentioned, I actually this week, I don't know if I told you this, and we can talk about this as another subject, but this week I actually paused all of the Facebook groups that I was following that were watch related because it's just too much. It's too much to take in. And there was somebody that posted on the Urban Gentry and said, I'm a new collector. What advice do you have for me? And I replied back saying, run while you still can.
Just get out now.
Get out now, because
get out now.
We love watches, and then when it becomes that obsession, I think you're probably going to mention the type that I am, and I'm definitely the kind of magpie type, if that is a type. And also, I think I did mention last week that I'd put my Speedmaster up for sale, so I'm sure I'm going to get maybe a little interrogated about that. Yeah, I'm interested to certainly hear about what these types are. I've got an idea, but
so we've got the flipper, right? So the person that just is not satisfied and is just constantly and probably satisfies everyone's Instagram, right? Because there's always something. Like, I always feel you kind of get a little self-conscious when I have a pretty active watch Instagram, and I've got my collection that it is made interesting by the new Seikos that I'm playing with, or like the Seiko mod that I'm doing of the month or the week or whatever. But yeah, I do sort of look at folks that, like, the 3 watch collection, and God love you if you got it down to 3 and that's it. Like, if you're satisfied with 3, then this is great, but your Instagram is boring. I'm sorry. and, and so it's just like it gets in your head where you're like looking, you're like, oh, this is, geez, I'd love to just have the three, or I just, to get it down to these three perfect pieces, right? But then at the same time, you're doing, so you get the flipper who is constantly on the hunt for that new cool thing.
I would say I fall into that category, but I would never say I was a flipper, because I guess that has connotations that you're buying watches just to sell them for a profit. And honestly, the amount of watches that I have bought and then sold, 95% of them I'd say I ever sold for even what I paid for them, let alone a profit.
Oh, yeah,
I always,
yeah.
I'm always in the hole with it financially, but to experience them.
Yeah, and I think you'll see for this particular list, I think you'll see that we're maybe like a blend of the types. So the next one is the lifelong collector, right? And I don't necessarily, I mean, I know a couple people like this, or I kind of run into a couple people like this where they're just like, they have collected either one particular type of watch, or their watch collection is kind of, that's, sort of static, and they're going to keep them forever, and they're never going to sell them, and that sort of thing, which is fine. A little bit of that is fine. And then the hoarder. You're not a hoarder, Sam. I'm pretty sure.
I do have a lot of admiration for the people that curate a collection around a central theme. So Todd, who came on the podcast, one of the first podcasts, he loves watches in general, but he really knows his stuff and collects vintage Seiko chronographs.
Right.
And that really impresses me, that he's got a theme to his collection, and that's what he goes for. I've probably said at some point I've got a theme, but mine changes. I'm literally like a magpie. And
I guess one of the other types, and not listed here, but certainly what I sort of feel is like the check all boxes, which I think maybe we both fall into, where it's like, okay, I got my dress watch, I got my diver, I got my chronometer, I got my, chronograph, I've got my moon phase, I got my day date, I've got my, you know what I mean? Like, and you're just like, and there's the list of like, I got my GMT, I got my, you know what I mean? And you get into this. I sort of felt like I got swallowed up in that a little bit. At first I was nervous because I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, am I a type? Am I this guy that has like a watch of every type?
Yeah.
But I find that just like the tools that they are, I will wear, just like the stuff I put in my pocket, I will wear a watch based on what I'm going to be doing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, I work on computers all day, so that gives me a lot of freedom to wear a lot of whatever, like I wear whatever, and I'm not, but there is, we're not putting on the 1990s vintage chronograph to go change the brakes on the Mazda.
I think being a watch YouTuber, I started off very much thinking that, obviously I was buying and selling watches because I needed some to review, and I certainly didn't have the money to. I mean, that's why it's so cool now that I get to go to Bob's Watches, and,
right.
and thankfully
you're getting approached by brands. I mean, that's the measure of the channel.
I think that also you have an appreciation as well, being a reviewer and chatting to so many people that are subscribers, that the collections that you see where somebody has got multiple really expensive watches, like, to me, if you see somebody that's got many Rolexes, or like you said, the Breguet and stuff like that, you kind of think that you'd feel like you had to wear them all the time, or you're keeping them for an investment. And I think learning what I do about, the people that subscribe to the channel and people I conversate with, that there's just a lot of fun in the sub-$1,000, sub-$500 watch.
You talked about that Facebook post that's like, I'm new to watch collecting, which, like, the one that I always get that it just irks me when I see it. And this is nothing to say, listen, if you are the watch collector that you need to feel complete, but like that complete carbon copy, perfect watch collection that I think everybody holds up so you need, so one, you need the Omega Seamaster, you need a Submariner, you need a Speedmaster, you need a dress watch, so probably a Gégé Lecoultre or a JLC Reverso, or you can go for the Cartier Santos or the Cartier
Yeah.
Tank. And then we move on to the dive watch. So it's like you got your Rolex, you got your Deep Sea, and then you got your sports. So you got an AP or your Patek,
Yeah.
and you see these, like, oh,
Nautilus.
I've been watch collecting for 2 years, and here's what I came up with. And you look at this set, and you're just like, it feels like a chess set.
Yes.
That it's like, okay, well, you got at least everyone's grail, but like, did you actually, like, is that what's making you happy? Like, do you?
Yeah, do you enjoy each of these watches? We're talking a good game here because I haven't got the money to assemble a collection like that. I don't know whether I think they were too precious to wear.
Right, but that's sort of what that's one of the things that I'm sort of getting at is, do those people on Instagram, are those adversely influencing casual social watch collectors? We're both social, and also not necessarily with the funds to be able to build a collection like that. There's people out there with these collections that sort of like, they get into this, you're like, I gotta get started in watch collecting, so I'm gonna need one Speedmaster, one Submariner, one, like, this, check off the boxes. So my question for you is, you have the Speedmaster, you thoroughly enjoy it. You've had that, how long have you had that watch
12
now?
years, yeah.
12 years. You've got stories with that. You've got history with that. And, I feel like the last time you were telling us, and I rewatched your video, and folks listening, certainly take a look at the one where Sam sends it off to service, and they polished all the little scratches and dents out of it mostly. And now you're sort of feeling like, it's too precious,
It's weird because we talk about watch collecting, but in my general, like my general non-watch collecting life, I try to live pretty minimalist, and this is like a new thing. This is like the last 3 or 4 years, because I remember when I first bought my own house, I was hoarding all sorts of stuff. I mean, I used to work at a Mac Apple Mac reseller, which was like the worst thing. That was like being a drug addict working for a drug dealer.
Right.
They'd be throwing out old Macs, and I'd be like trying to save them, and I just had a loft full of old Macs. And when I moved to the US, I started again collecting stuff, and I was like, no, this has to end now. I can't fill another house full of knickknacks and things like that. So I ended up living quite minimalist, and within that I could even talk about this a little bit more, about the kind of minimalism journey. Is followed 2 guys who were called The Minimalists. They've got a great documentary on Netflix, and it's all about like association with things. In fact, they've got a great phrase that they use, which is love people and use things because the other way around never works. I think it's a great phrase, and it allowed me to just disassociate myself from a lot of the material things that I had. This is probably getting very philosophical here, but disassociate myself from like material things that I owned. The only 3 watches that I really truly will keep forever are my 2 grandfathers' watches, and then my father-in-law who sadly passed away. And those are actually the cheapest watches in my collection by a long shot. One is a Timex with a stamped movement. So those have sentimental value to me. The memories that I've got with the Speedmaster are they're fond memories for sure. I got married with that watch, but also I have the photos of my marriage, and my wife is still around, so I have the best reminder that I'm married.
True. You're gonna now it's the wedding watch. Wow. Okay, that's big. I mean, that's hardcore minimalist if you're considering slimming that from the collection. I mean, I still have I have a 36 mil Fossil blue dial. It's like a diver style Fossil watch from when I got married, and I actually rebuilt it, and it won't leave the collection. but it's not, you won't see it. I think I have it on, I think I posted when I refinished it, but that was about it, and then.
If I do end up selling it and it's not sold, it's on Chrono 24. I've priced it. I've priced it at a point where it's market
It would be good
value.
for you. It would be good for you. Yeah.
It's not a fire sale type situation.
Right.
And you're right. Once it did get, and maybe I should do a more in-depth like YouTube video about this. But right, once I got it back from servicing, and it was so pristine, and the band was so pristine, it suddenly became a precious object. Whereas before, the Speedmaster was, like you say, I mean, I remember a couple of times stopping myself when I had my hands in the bloody compost pile, in the back of the garden,
right. In the back of the fish tank,
on.
just
yeah, exactly. And I told you I went swimming with it multiple times, but now it has become this precious object. So I don't know whether it has.
Yeah, and I think my personal feeling, and I'm going to take a leap here, and I think it's you had this nice old car, and you went and somebody smushed the front bumper, and so then you brought it to the shop, and they did and insurance paid for everything, and they said, oh, we got to respray the whole thing, and they took absolutely every dent, and I mean it just looks like a brand new convertible whatever, and now you're afraid to go to Albertsons. Because you're just like, I don't want anybody to bump into it.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it, as well? And also because they did a good job of the polishing of it, but also because it had some dents, I don't know whether it would survive another polishing and still look so good and not look over polished.
Yeah,
so
but,
this whole
that like precious object, especially with this. And now, so the thinking for me, this is interesting because like the Speedmaster, not to take it away, but it's not like they made one of them. They made, they're pumping 1 million of these. They're pumping 100,000 of these things out every minute.
It's a weird watch in the fact that it's a bit of a paradox, because it has the sapphire on the back, it has the exhibition case on the back, but it has the Hesselite on the front. And I'm all for the fondness and romance of Hesselite, but you only have to look at it and it's scratched.
right.
I've even stopped buying Hesselite watches. That's why I won't buy that Timex Q watch, because that's got Hesselite.
I just looked. The Zinn has a limited mill type that they just put out. This military type watch that they just put out, and they did it with the acrylic crystal. And I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, it's a shame. And so I know I'm gonna scratch it. I'm also clumsy with stuff as well. Like I do scratch watches without meaning to, and maybe I've never regretted selling a watch. Never. I mean, I think I mentioned that CWC watch last time. I only regretted selling that because I could have sold it for a lot more afterwards. I've never regretted it. Also, we don't currently have children, and also my sister doesn't have children, so it's not like there's a niece or nephew that. Or
right.
like my own
Somebody
child
could, like,
that
hand
I would
down, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe if we do have kids, I would regret selling it then. But you can make your own memories.
All right, well, let's get over the hill a little bit. What are you using the Speedmaster money for?
I haven't got any plans to spend it on a watch now. When I do get the money, who knows? and to be honest, I did buy that Tudor Black Bay 58 as well. So it's not like I'm getting rid of all my luxury watches for some reason. But I don't know. I feel like, I guess it's an election year, isn't it, in the US coming up this year? And we certainly won't talk politics, but I can't help but think that the economy's been so good recently.
Right.
But the stock market in particular, I mean, I don't know if you saw Tesla's stock. Went insane this week. Tesla went up to $900. I sold my Tesla stock when it went up 325, and I honestly believed that it would never go higher than 380 because it tanked after that. It went down to 170. What's going on is ridiculous in the stock market, and I feel like something's going to happen. Like, and so maybe I'll just sit on the money for a bit. I mean, we're not talking like life-changing money, $4,000, but I'd rather have it.
But just have that hanging out then. Yeah, and I feel like, everyone's talking about the bubble. They're talking about the Rolex bubble. They're talking about the watch bubble. They're talking about the economic, the good times can't last forever kind of bubble. So, and I am thinking about, like, for some of my long-term purchases, which we'll have to do an episode on. I'm definitely thinking about, like, what's this going to cost in 2 years? What's this one? This one's pretty pricey. What does this look like in 2 years? Does this look like it's $1,000 less, or Or
Yeah, and that you mentioned that Pelagos before. I mean, that's a beautiful, like, versatile watch, and it has the date on it. It has, it's titanium and stuff like that. So that's certainly a watch that I had future. But yeah, I think, I don't know, maybe it's just I don't know, maybe it's like January and it's starting a new year, and I'll change differently, my views during the course of the year. I also need to start uploading again on the channel. It's been at least 2 weeks since I uploaded. I've got a couple of uploads ready to go.
good.
So
Yeah, for me, I have kind of some rules, and I wanted to talk about them a little bit. So I'm not going to buy used. So my take with buying used watches, if I'm interested in it, if I'm looking for something, is it's got to be 25 to 30% off retail. For a quick example, like you take a $3,000 watch, so that's like a Breitling Super Ocean 2, which I have my eye on. Yeah, so buying that used, picking that up from eBay, that better be $2,100.
yeah,
And there's only 4 or 5 brands that break this, and we all know which number one brand breaks this. This is Rolex, of course, it breaks this. But and I was watching something the other day that said this very smartly, yes, you're not going to lose money on Rolex, but you're paying for the privilege. So
yeah,
so for the $3,000 watch, you now have to pay $7,000. When you go to sell it, you'll get your $7,000 back at least, but you had to pay for the privilege of that. So that's the only one that sort of breaks that. And so for less expensive watches, which I dabble in, like once you get down to, like, it's interesting. I think a lot of new collectors, they think that, and I did this too. Like when I bought my Hamilton, I bought it at Joma Shop, and I took the gray market risk, and I was like, holy crap, I'm buying a $580 watch, right? And you think, like, I think first time collectors are like, okay, well, I can just turn around and sell that on eBay. And the answer is no. The answer is no. That money is gone.
yes,
And so if you have a $500 watch, and if you can get 300 and something dollars for it on eBay, you're doing fantastic.
yes, yeah. There's only a handful of brands, isn't there, really, where you would, certain models you would get your money back.
Yeah,
I think, but
but not the except. Yeah, the
no,
exception
that's
rather than the rule.
the
Yeah.
exception rather than the rule. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, so it's sort of like, I think the first thing I would say, is to get people sort of used to that. Like once you're up into the luxury watch, your Tudors, your $3,000, your those level of pieces, now okay, you can turn around and sell that and do better, but you're still going to possibly lose some money on it, for
Well,
being
yeah,
used.
and it goes back. I mean, that Speedmaster's been on Chrono 24 for 2 weeks now. I've got some people that have favorited it, and it's not priced outrageously. It's in line with what they actually recommend. They recommend the price, and nobody's messaged me about it. If I had to have liquidated that watch fast, I think the Black Bay 38, the Black Bay 58, sorry, I could probably liquidate that fast, but the Speedmaster's not been.
No, right, because
liquidation.
I think there was some limit. There's the 58s were, like, you even had some trouble. I had I bought a Notice, one of the blue dial, and I loved it in pictures, but I couldn't connect with it when I got it. But because it was, such a short run micro brand, they immediately sold out of them. That was the only reason I was able to do okay and not completely lose my shirt when I sold it on eBay. So
Yeah, it's funny, and I've never told this story. A lot of people ask why I didn't fully review the Laurier watch that I had, and it was because I reviewed it and I liked. Don't get me wrong, it's a great watch for the money. For $400, it's a great watch. But somebody offered me what I paid for it, and they were out of stock. And I was like, well, wow, when this thing gets back in stock again, or they release a new model, I'm going to be taking a hit on it. So I just was like, sold it for exactly what I what I got it for, and like you say, that's a kind of an exception.
Yeah, exactly. And like the new time, like that new Timex that came out, and then everybody they had
Oh,
they, you know, same
ridiculous!
thing
Yeah,
with the Seiko Alpinist. They did the same thing again, you know. Like, so you can get those ones, but like if you're building a collection on this, like just don't do this. Don't you know?
yeah,
Like
yeah. Don't.
then you're a
Yeah.
flipper, and then like you're in it for the money. And so the big thing for me is functional value. And you sort of talked about this with your, like use it, as a tool, use it, like to use as an object, to get use out of. And its functional value, not its resale value. Like once you have that thing, like it's sunk cost. You own it.
Yes. Yeah.
So for me, when I look at watches used or new, it's the stuff that ticks the boxes. It's like, okay, does it have 200-meter, can I dive with it? And can I swim with it more specifically? 200 meters doesn't mean I'm going to 200 meters. It just means that I might stick my hand in the pool, like, but not have to worry about it. Does it have the, complications that I think I need? Does it check some of the boxes for the tool watch? I'm more of a tool watch buyer. I like that aesthetic, definitely for me. And I think for you, and I'm kind of curious to ask this, for me, I want the story, and I will also rely a little bit on the heritage of the brand to get the story. And definitely you have talked about some of these brands that, they're saying one thing, but they're doing another, or,
Yeah.
maybe their heritage is kind of suspect, or their brand story, that sort of thing. I mean, I think it's the same, not to get too nerdy with wine, but I think it's the same thing for me in wine. I wanna find the $37 bottle of wine that's drinking like $100 bottle of wine. And I want it from the winemaker in Paso Robles who went out of his way to let me try a barrel sample when I was there in the summertime. That just nerdy, but the same thing with watches. Like, I want the 1990s chronograph that Bell and Ross had Zinn make when they were just starting out in their marketing, and it's it's completely a Zinn watch, but they're trying something new, and just that's the fun stuff for me. What brands for you sort of check those boxes where there's a story there? I mean, is that something that you relate to?
That's a great question. I definitely like a good story behind a brand. I mean, I was a sucker for Omega's Speedmaster story, the Moon Watch. I think I alluded to this last time, that I think some of their current models and the prices that they're charging for them has actually affected what I think of the brand. And maybe this is a whole different topic in itself. But yeah, I certainly like a decent story with the watch. Like they watches that I've reviewed, the two guys from LA, they're assembling it. I was speaking to a guy from the Detroit Mint watch company. He had a great story about how he came up with the brand. I like a lot of the micro brands, I think, are where the cool stories are at the moment. Not the ones that are coming from like China, where it's like they disrupt. Oh, well, it's unfair because there's some amazing watches coming from China. But some of the ones where they're like, oh, we're disrupting the Swedish, Swiss watch industry.
We're cutting out the middleman, Sam. We're bringing this direct to you in every dial color available. Yeah.
So yeah, I like that. I like the history and like the icons. But I think at the moment, a lot of the big brands are making you pay for that history and making you pay for those iconic pieces, which I'm not necessarily on board with.
Right. Yeah.
At the moment,
and some brands, like we talked about Tag, and I'll mention Breitling here. You go to a flight school. I mean, it's like Breitlings for days. Like that's just the watch you get, right? It's like standard issue. But I was reading something the other day. They have so many of those Super Ocean Heritage that they ended up in TJ Maxx.
Oh wow.
So like there's stories on Reddit that people are buying Super Ocean 2s out of TJ Maxx for like, $2,300 or something like that. And I'm just like, what does that do to the brand? I mean, like you said, like it makes you think like, when you're either the opposite of, raising prices, now we're just dumping gray market, we're just dumping watches into TJ Maxx because we can't sell them. I mean, it makes me
that's incredible.
Kind of feel the same way. We were like, guys, get it together, like as a brand, tarnishing. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, Chris, that was a really interesting topic, and thanks for that this week, guys. Let us know what you think of this subject. We have got this podcast is hosted on multiple different platforms, and we've not found a good way of aggregating all the comments yet. So if you've got a message for me or for Chris, you can contact us at thecasualwatchreview@gmail.com. You can also message Chris, and please follow him on his Instagram, Everyday Mastery. And then you can also follow me on my Instagram, which is the Casual Watch Reviewer. So thanks for another interesting topic there, Chris.
Awesome. Absolutely. Thanks, Sam.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.